So what do you do in that situation? What did I do in that situation? When we have these two that are completely missing each other. Well, what it means is you have to have a long, hard talk. And parents of teenagers, okay, so this church is going to be absolutely bursting at the seams with teenagers in about 5 to 8 years. We're gonna have so many teenagers around here, so this would be good for you to go back and reference. But I'll just tell you now, as you're bringing those kids up, you're already busy, you're already at your wit's end, your hair looks good this morning, I'm glad. But so many of you are so worn out by parenting. And when you get these kids, if you're busy, you've got busy schedules, you're homeschooling the kids, if in that moment one of your teenagers all of a sudden becomes 10 times more disrespectful, feels 10 times more disrespectful than you've ever heard them be, in that moment, the last thing you're gonna wanna do is say, okay, let's have a conversation and let's talk about this for 2 hours. You are not gonna wanna do that. You're gonna wanna crush it. You're gonna want them, just punish them, send them off to their room, and don't speak to them ever again. That's what you're gonna feel like doing. But I'm telling you, that's not the answer. Your flesh will want to destroy them, but I'm telling you, your spirit must long and love and search for these conversations to have with your kids. These are the moments that will change the character and the future of your child. These are the moments that will make them. If you sacrifice that time, if you pour yourself out for them, if you're willing to suffer as you try to understand and hear them, because you're gonna have to try really, really hard, because in those moments, they don't understand themselves. And so you're trying to help them understand themselves so that you can understand them. It's just an incredibly difficult task. But if you do that, then Lord willing, He will use you to shape them into an amazing man or woman of God. But if all you do is yell at them and demand your way and stomp on their voice and their emotional reality and not give a rip about how they're feeling, and you don't show them in that moment by your own example how to be respectful, well then you're just gonna be shaping them into something else. And this young man, in these moments, this young man is really hurting. He's so incredibly frustrated and he has no idea why. He's got some surface stuff, but there's a deep frustration inside of him that even he is mad at. He can't stand how worked up he is. And often in that, it'll take a long time. These conversations will take a long time to figure out what exactly that is. But ladies and gentlemen, you cannot teach and train a child as they need if you have no clue what they need. And why wouldn't you know what they need? Well, it's because you're not listening to their voice. Fathers, do not exasperate your children, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. If all you do is demand obedience and you do not pull out the hurt of that suffering teenager and mend the relational dynamics and give them the actual instruction that they really need, then all you're doing is pushing them away. So, in that situation, I have to bring Nathan into the room and we talk about these things. So a few years ago, this was our reality, where we sit down and talk, we say, okay, here's what was said to mom, and mom needs to be able to voice to you in a safe way how that made her feel, what it did to her. And so we would go over those things. And really what happens, what really takes place there is this is actually fantastic training for marriage one day. Surprising to me, but that's what's happening. I'd say between the ages of maybe 13 to 18 is maybe some of the best training opportunity for a son to learn how to communicate and operate with feminine. It's great training for how he might be as a husband one day. Of course, he can learn and watch and observe, dad and how he interacts with mom. He can do that his whole life. But we need to remember as parents that these young men need to be trained how to lead with gentleness and how to have their voices heard by using very careful words. We need to give them a safe place to have their first 100 at-bats in communicating with the feminine. No, it doesn't mean that he gets to lead at home. He doesn't get to lead. And no, it doesn't mean that there isn't discipline that might still need to happen at that age. But it does mean that he learns how to talk through his emotions and his concerns and even his rebuttals with his mother. And if you do this, things will look good. But if you refuse to talk, if you stifle his growing voice, condemn his every effort, then that boy, what's going to happen to him is he's not going to be well prepared for marriage. He won't know how to handle the feminine. If you don't train him, he will struggle with one of two things. Either he will struggle in not being a tyrant, or he will struggle with, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm not going to speak at all and I'll never assert my own authority or leadership because nobody ever taught him how to do it. So don't stifle him, train him. Proverbs 14:4, where there are no oxen, the stable is clean, but an abundant harvest comes through the strength of the ox. So that means if you want an ox that will one day provide an abundant harvest, well, then you got to be willing to go in and clean out the stable. You have to get the shovel out. When these moments happen, it's like, oh boy, I thought I was going to relax tonight. Nope, apparently I'm going to have a 2-hour conversation with my teenager. But man alive, getting the shovel out and doing it, it is so worth it.